Amen. Well, today is turned into Mission Sunday. We're going to celebrate missions, and one way we're going to do that is we get to hear a report from our very own missionary to Ecuador. Stephanie's going to come up and tell us about what God did on that trip, which was amazing. You want to? I think we have some.
All right, we'd like to also call kids. If you want to come up here too in preparation for the sermon that we're going to have, it's okay to do that right now and just come and sit. If you choose to, if you want to stay with mom and dad, that's fine too. All right, buenos dias, Grace Chapel. Mi amo Stephanie. Alleluia. Gloria de Dios. That's it. No, it's amazing. I was in Spanish immersion for 9 days, and it's amazing how much you pick up when you're immersed in Spanish. Best way to do it when you're trying to learn a language. And ever since I've been home, God has thrown other opportunities which I couldn't take, but he was showing me that I need to continue with my Spanish, and Pastor Ogla said, please continue. So I will be working on that. So somehow I'm going to be fluent maybe in a year. All right. Well, thank you for letting me share. I had an amazing opportunity to accompany Pastor Ogla, me and another lady that she knows from Comunidad La Vida. Cecilia went with her. The goal of the trip was to attend a Foursquare Women's Conference that was celebrating their 50th anniversary celebration, and it was from women all over Ecuador, including the islands that come together once a year for this Foursquare conference. Pastor Ogla has been pastoring at this conference for 30 years, so they gave her a special award, and then there was another pastor that actually she grew up with in Mexico that was honored for her service with the convention as well, this conference, so it was pretty amazing. I did bring a few fun photos to share with you. So look, Grace Chapel's there. So I sent a few fun photos to Pastor Carrie. I said, I love missions, and she said, ha ha, because there were some beautiful ones of us relaxing and having fun, but how can you go to a foreign country and not explore all they have to offer? So we landed in Quito, and that's actually where Pastor Vladimir from Comunidad de La Vida, Pastor Ogla's husband, is from, and so we got to stay in Quito for a few days, so that's an overview of Quito from a monument that we were at way up tall. A beautiful, beautiful city. Next slide. And that's us exploring the old city. So Pastor Ogla and Cecilia and I, beautiful. It was settled by Spain, and so a lot of Spanish influence there with architecture and colors, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. Next slide. We went and saw some beautiful cathedrals there. Again, Catholicism, because it's conquered by Spain. Things I haven't seen before. We don't have things like this here. So that was fun. This is Pastor Vladimir's childhood home. This is where I got to stay, and I was so honored to be hosted by his family. Downstairs was a single level when Pastor Vladimir was growing up, and it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house down there, and his mom hosted us. So it was what an experience to be among family in a home there. And since he was born, they extended it going up so that the brothers have their own houses. So pretty amazing. Oh, go ahead. It's fine. And how could you not go to the equator? So that's the northern and southern hemispheres that we were in. So that was fun. And next. And then we went to these beautiful thermal hot springs. This was a picture I sent Carrie. It was more of me in a lounge chair with my feet, and I said, missionary life. She thought that was funny. All right. But then we got to, my photos uploaded backwards. That's okay. We'll start with the conference because we left Quito and we went to Ibarra. So the conference was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There was actually 575 women from all over Ecuador that was in attendance. Pastor Ogla, she ministered Friday night and Saturday morning. And then the pastor from California ministered Saturday evening and then Sunday morning. And there was a breakout session after the first one, and the women could choose one of three. And Pastor Ogla hosted one of them, and Cecilia and I, the theme of the conference was reflecting God's glory to many generations, to many generations. And the verse, I had it right here. 2 Corinthians 3:18 was the theme verse for the conference. I don't know why it doesn't want to jump to there. So all of us who have had the veil removed can see and reflect the glory of the Lord. And the Lord, who is Spirit, makes us more and more like him as we are changed into his glorious image. So Cecilia and I we had the opportunity to share our testimonies on how the veil was lifted and how our change, God was able to break the generational curses going forward. And it's no coincidence that her and I shared on the same topic. So that must have been a message that needed to be heard by the women there. My daughter thought it was very funny. She said, now how are you praying for people, or how do you share when you don't speak Spanish? And I said, well, Pastor Ogla and I have been practicing this for like about over a year now with the combined women's event. So we're getting this down pretty good as far as her translating. But you know what? We all speak Jesus, and we all speak Holy Spirit. And I might not have understood what these women said when they came up to me afterwards, but I understood enough to say that their heart was touched with testimony that was shared and thanking us for that. And so yeah, that translates in any language. So go ahead, next one, because I don't know where we're at. Oh yeah, lunch. I have so many pictures of food. Food was amazing. But the gentleman on the far left corner is the president of Foursquare Missions in Ecuador. We were treated by some local pastors for a lovely, lovely lunch afterwards. So gracious and so hospitable. And that was the pastoral team. There's me giving testimony. Okay. With Pastor Ogla. Next. And then that's the pastoral team that was there from Ecuador, and again, a couple of women from California. And next. Okay, so this is a little out of order, but Wednesday evening we had the opportunity to share at a local church. Well, not we, Pastor Ogla, but we were able to pray for them. She had a connection with the wife who's since deceased. They lived over there for years, Pastor Ogla and her husband. And so they had invited her to come share at their Wednesday night service. And what a blessing that was to be in a small congregation of just other believers worshiping the Lord and crying out for that. And we were able to do prayer for them that evening as well. Next. And then we got invited over, oh my gosh, late evenings, 10 o'clock at night for empanadas and tea, but amazing. To the worship leaders' houses. I know, it's all I could also tell this story differently. I could give you a food journey through Ecuador. But that was fun. And then next. Prayer for the evening. Next. And I think that's it, because we went a little bit out of order. But one other thing, and I'm not the speaker, Pastor Scott is. My mom asked me yesterday what was my one takeaway from Ecuador. And I could rave about the food, and I swear it's manna from heaven. They're surrounded by 11 volcanoes. Their earth, their ground is so fertile. Everything is so fresh there. It's just absolutely amazing. I could tell you how I want to expat there. I've already told my husband that. But what I really learned, because this was my first big missions trip, and my takeaway from it was that our mission is to mission to people wherever, and language, culture, distance, it doesn't matter. We all need to be witnessed to and to witness to others. And we do that with our testimony. That's the most powerful thing that we have, where God can deposit hope and faith that we have into others that need that hope and that faith. And whether you're asked in Starbucks, you get that little tingle inside, whether it's a mom that you've befriended at school with your kids, whether it's your neighbor, we all have that testimony. So my call to you today would, if you have not reflected on a little elevator testimony, that's a little 3-minute testimony, I would take some time this week to really reflect on that. And when God calls you to share, that you're ready to do that. We can break our testimony down for specific incidences in life, specific issues that they broke down, but it's good to have something on hand for when we're called. And again, it might not be Ecuador, it might just be your next door neighbor, but it's all important. So giving testimony, relating to people, that was my big takeaway from that. So thank you for letting me share. Diez de bondegos means God bless you, and ciao.
Yeah, all right. We're in a series on Acts, and as you remember, the very beginning of Acts, we have Jesus telling his disciples, that you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. And so that's the journey we're on. We're part of that commission, to be filled with the Spirit so that we can be witnesses to the ends of the earth, wherever we go. And today we're going to have a practical, some practical application on how we can do that. How can we be witnesses? Can we be witnesses? Are we qualified to be witnesses? And so I'm glad to welcome Scott and January Wilson with us this morning.
For time's sake, it just will be me. So recently I had a surgery on my shoulder, and we were visiting another church, and they asked us to come up and just give a few minutes talking about the possibilities of their coming down to Mexico. And my arm was in a sling, and I'm like, well, I like to talk with my hands, so you guys are only going to get half my story. You guys are fortunate because I'm out. Now you get the whole thing. So I just want to be so grateful that allowed to come and just talk about what God is doing. We talk about what God has done and kind of give you a glimpse about what God can do. When we were talking about us stopping by and visiting, Pastor Carrie asked, said, "Hey, would you want to speak?" And I'm always agreeable, so I'm like, do you have a general topic? She goes, "Well, it's Family Sunday." So I'm like, okay, so what's something that will interest a 5-year-old and a 70-year-old? That's a tough topic, but then we were talking about it, and it's just talking about what it's like to be in the field. I'm sure Pastor Becky and her husband, that they often tell stories. But what I'm going to do is just kind of go through some of the things through our experience about what's been going on and some of the stories that I have been able to experience. Our missions story kind of starts a little bit further than this, but for me, it really took place in my first trip to the Philippines. Our church that we were sent out of in Las Vegas, every year would send a team for 2 weeks to the Philippines. And so we're first starting to go there, and they start talking about it, and January's like, "I want to go." I'm like, "No, we just started going to this church. We're not going to do that." So the next year comes around, and she goes, "I want to go. Can we go?" I'm like, "No, because that's the same time as our wedding. You can't be in two places the same." The next year, again, the conversation starts coming, and she goes, can we go this year? I'm like, "No, we're still paying off the wedding from last year. We can't afford that." The fourth time it comes around, there's no question. She's just saying, I'm going. If you want to, there's no question about it. Now, mind you, we've only been married for 2 years, so I'm not really excited about sending my brand new bride halfway around the world without me. So I'm like, okay, we'll both go. And that's kind of where we got started. I really didn't want to go, but I thought it was the right thing to do. And so we go, and you could go to the first slide just to kind of give a context. This is an outreach that we did. Often what we would do is go from place to place. And in this year, the photo is every day for the second week while we're there, we're going to a different town. And I'm a logistic-minded guy. I'm just putting that out there. So there we are, and we go to one of these outreaches, and we supply ice cream at the end of service, the program we're doing. And they say, hey, why don't you guys scoop the ice cream? And I'm like, isn't that what we paid the guys for? And these were in these big, tall containers. And so I'm like, okay, what do we have? And they gave me this little spoon. I'm like, seriously? We didn't plan this? And so we start going, and pretty soon, I get further down in that little tub, and pretty soon, ice cream's getting on the back of my hand, and then on my forearm. Before I know it, it's up to my shoulder. I have ice cream everywhere because it's hot, and everything's melting, and it gets just sticky and everything, and I'm just getting frustrated because I don't like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. Where can I wash up? Oh, this is at a school, everything's closed up. I'm like, we don't even have water? I mean, and so I'm trying to take a bottle of water to rinse this off. I'm irritated, completely irritated. And I'm like, who thought of this? Who planned this out? The next night we go to another town and we're doing stuff, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna stay in this house. Because when they did the testing things out, they said, one of the people from the church said, yeah, I got a big house. The whole team could stay there. Now, mind you, we had a team of 15 plus support people, so we were pushing 20. And like, yeah, we have enough room for everybody. I'm like, okay, so we come in the door. They have 2 rooms, 2 bedrooms. Now, mind you, they're really big. So one, the family stayed in. The second one, the ladies stayed in. So that left us guys to be laying on this tile floor in the living room. My mattress was that thick, and I'm being generous. And I'm like, okay, this is not what I signed up for. Mind you, I didn't want to be there in the first place. And I'm just like, I'm telling the guy, I'm like, look, I understand. This is, this is not what you thought, but I would do things differently. Get up the next morning, and they're like, okay, well, the women can use the bathroom. The guys, we have a pump in the front yard. That's what you guys will use for your shower. I'm like, a well? I'm going to be pumping cold water. Are you kidding me? Because one of the things, roughing it to me is Motel 6. I'm not a camper guy. So I'm getting to a point where this is not what I thought. The next night we're at another place, and we drive into town, and there's a few houses around, and we go to this basketball court, and that's where we're going to have our program. And I look, and people start coming, people come in, and they're getting ready, and I'm like, there's more people around this in this basketball court than could fit in these houses. I'm like, where are all these people coming from? They're like, some of these people walked 2 hours to get here because they heard there was going to be some American missionaries. I'm like, oh, really? I wouldn't walk 15 minutes to go if I had to. We do our program, and at the end they go, okay, let's everybody just line up, all of our team line up, and we'll have prayer lines. I'm like, okay, I can do that. And so I'm standing there, and there's 15 of us, and all of a sudden the kids start coming. And I look up, and I have a line in front of me that's 20, 30 people, 30 kids. Each one of us have that. And I'm like, wow, what do these kids think we have candy or something? But no, they know it's just for prayer. And so I'm like, okay, what can I pray for you for? And the majority of them had almost the same answer. Pray that I would do better in school, that God would help me do better in school. Not can I get more stuff, not can I have money, not can I have better clothes, can I do better in school? Because they know that if they do better in school, they get a better job, then they can send money back to the family, and the whole family benefits if they do better in school. These are kids this age asking to do better in school. That's what they want. And I'm like, wow. That just, it shocked me. And it kind of took my mind back and my heart back to where it should be. Because of this. If you got the next slide going up, should be, no, the next one. That's in Cebu, but this is what I wanted to bring up. Do not be so focused on the what and the how that you neglect the who and the why. That's what I was doing. I was sitting there and I was so focused on, I don't have the right scoops for the ice cream. I don't have the right things. I don't have the stuff. The logistic-minded person in me was screaming, you could do this better. But what I was forgetting about was, who was I doing this for? Was it for me? No. It was for them. And why? Because the fact that we were Americans caused them to want to come and see what the Americans were doing. And that gave them the opportunity to hear about the gospel. If we get so wrapped up in the what and the how, which I still struggle with today. I'm an administrative guy. I struggle with this. I get so focused on the what and the how, and I lose sight of the who and the why. But if I focus on the who and the why, the what and the how take care of themselves. One of the stories about the Philippines that we like talking about is that when they, especially if you go back to places, so when you go back to Ecuador, yeah, and they know that you like empanadas, you're going to get a lot of empanadas. After my first year, I've since been back 3 times to the Philippines, and every single time they make sure I get a lot of the dish that I really like, that they know I really like, which is called pancit. Oh, they don't have good pancit in Mexico, just saying. There were 5 things that I always wanted to get in the Philippines. There was pancit, there was something called budbud, which is a sticky rice delicacy. Oh, mangoes, correct mangoes. You guys don't know what mangoes are until you see them there. They had little mini bananas called señoritas, and they were all so good. And another one which was pork adobo. Food, of course, it's food. But when they find out that you like something, they make sure you get it. One of the other things that happened on that very first trip was back probably about 5 or 6 years before that, before I met January, I was still in my angry, rebellious stage in reference to God. And I was living in Las Vegas, and things weren't quite going the way I had planned, the way I thought, the way I had hoped. And so I'm like, okay, God, let's put you to the test. See, I believed in God. I believed he was there. I just didn't think that he cared about me at all. And so I'm like, I'm going to go to this church. I'm going to make a deal with you. I'm going to go to the church, and you have the sermon hit me right between the eyes, just like right at me. So I go in, and I'm sitting in the back, which I have a tendency to do. And I'm sitting back there, and not only is the sermon not pointed at me, there's not even a sermon. And I'm like, ha, I'm right. I knew it all along. I'm going to live my life the way I want. Fast forward to the Philippines. I'm with Pastor Reggie, who's our contact in Cebu, and we're driving to go pick up some paint for the next couple of days, our project, and he's asking my story. So I'm telling him this, and I'm going da-da-da-da. And I get to that part about that, and for some reason I told that, because usually it's a minor part. And I say that, and then God reminds me. He goes, what was that service about? And I'm like, huh? Oh. What the service was about was exactly what I'm doing now. It was a missionary giving a report from the mission field. At that time, I'm remembering this as being a missionary in the missions field, and I'm like, man, that's not fair, because the thing is that God did exactly what I asked him to do. I just wasn't ready to hear it yet. I'm glad he kind of pointed that, because now that I look back and I see how God is all along the time, even when I was ignoring him and doing everything against him, he knew what I was going to be. And now it's come full circle. Now I'm the one here instead of being the one in the back. The Philippines was not the only place where I have been. I've been to Honduras. And one of the trips on there, we're going to a church way out in the middle of nowhere. And we're driving on this road, and it took 4 hours to get to this church. And because there were so many potholes. Actually, what I believe is that they were growing those potholes and exporting them to other countries because there were so many. I come back a few years later, and they had fixed the road, and it only took us an hour and a half. So, that's how bad the potholes were. Anyway, we're still going all the way up, and they're like, hey, we're going to have a service at a church. So we go, okay, we'll go. And it's a day of the child. And so we go and we stop at the side of the road. I'm like, okay, are we just waiting for something? Oh, no, this is where we get out. And there was a little trail that you could kind of see between the trees over here. I'm like, all right. We climb up, we go past, and this photo here is what we open up to. It's all these kids waiting for us. And the pastor is the gentleman in the gray shirt in the front. And so what they did is they're having this whole celebration, and they're doing all these different things. And they had a piñata. But that pastor, he's about yay tall. They had a little bit of a problem getting the rope over the branch. So guess what? Volunteer. So I climb up there. Oh, mind you, I was much younger back then. Throw the rope over and get that. And so they're going, and each kid is trying to hit it. And so they give the stick to me. I'm like, you don't want me to do this. I'm like, no, go ahead. And so I'm there. And so I have the blindfold on, and I feel it, and I go, whack. And they're like, ooh, he's too good at this. So, okay, that's enough. They have us all sitting in lines like that, and you can see the ages of the kids. They had the girls on one side, the boys on the other. And go to the next slide. It's hard to see on that. So I'm halfway down on the boys' side, and they're having all these boys say their names, and they're like, Jose, Pablo. Yeah, they're saying that. I'm like, they're all really, really shy until they get to this tall white guy, and I'm like, Scott, and then all the kids are like, and they start giggling and everything like that. My point on that is, just by being a little different, it opens up the wall. And then every kid after that, they were all yelling their names and they're saying all this stuff. It just took me to be a little outside my comfort zone to all of a sudden, everything changed. They were bringing sodas around and giving him cups for the thing. And I'm like, they gave me this little bitty cup. I'm like, I'm bigger than this cup. I'm a big guy. And they're like, so they took the cup away and gave me a cap. I'm like, oh, you're funny. The thing is that because of that and how I was interacting, they actually asked me to speak at the youth night on Wednesday night, the youth service that they had. And I go and I do that. And the youth go, hey, would you like to go out to dinner with us? I'm like, sure. So we go and we pull into Pizza Hut. I'm thinking, okay, they often don't get a chance to come here. They're using this as an excuse. All right, not a problem. Sitting down, talking to them, and it's like, oh, so how, I guess you guys don't come here very often. They go, well, no, we come here all the time. We just thought you would want to come. I'm like, I could get Pizza Hut at home. Take me to a restaurant. I want Honduran food. And so the thing is that you just, by developing that, and this was back in 2010, 11, someplace around there. I'm still friends with some of those youth that I was with back then. Another country that I had been to, that I've been to a lot, was El Salvador, which I think is the next slide. Let's see where I'm at. Yeah, so that's our first night in San Salvador, kind of overlooking this. We went to a church that was up on this, I say it's up on the side of a volcano because you walk out the property and you look up and there's a volcano. So to me, that's growing up on the desert, that's close enough. I'm on the side of a volcano. But it's an area that's quite a ways away from most of the major cities. We get up there our very first time, and they had told us that they needed Bibles. I'm like, okay, so we brought 2 cases of Bibles. We get up there, and the pastor's like, yeah, we don't have any. And in fact, to be honest, I think the only reason that the guy was the pastor was because he had a Bible. That first year, we had to limit them 1 per family. This is not a big church either, because we didn't have enough to go around. We ended up coming back the next year with another 2 cases, and still we had to limit them. Finally, the third year, they finally had enough. But in that first year, we're walking around, and we had broken up into small groups, and there was a few of us going with one of the people from the church and just going around to the local neighborhood and talking to people, asking if they want a prayer, stuff like that. Well, January and another friend of ours, they and myself go with one of the leaders of the church, and we're going to these houses. And he was an elder in the church, actually. And January and our friend, they're talking to the lady, because it was just a lady, so I'm just standing back, because, it's women talking, anyway. And I'm standing there, and I look over, and that leader had pulled a chair off to the side. And he opened up his plastic bag, because there, if you want to keep something dry, it's in a Ziploc bag, including your cell phone or anything else. He pulls out the Bible, and he starts to open it and just feel in the pages. And to the look on his face, by having something so simple as a Bible finally in his hands, and he was in awe that he finally, and this is an elder in the church. You see, we're jumping down to the text part of that. There are things in our lives that we take for granted that are cherished by others, and God will use those to impact their lives. When I was going down there, I'm sure I had at least 12 Bibles in my house. At least. Different versions, now I have different languages. But the thing is that some things that we just take for granted, we don't really think too much about, are things that people are praying to God for. And God's going to use those things to make an impact in their life. And it may not be a physical thing. Maybe it's your talent. Maybe it's your personality. Maybe it's how you pray. There's things that you have that you just take for granted that people are desperately praying to God for, and he's going to use you to take that to. Last year when I was here, I talked about one of the most amazing miracles I've ever seen in my life that I was actually being able to be a part of. And if you go back 2 slides, I think it's the other. Yeah, that one there. Stop there. So that's us. I talked about, we had an event, and we were told there was going to be about 60 people there. So we're like, hey, let's make lasagna. They don't get lasagna very often. It's easy for us to make. So we made 2 big pans of lasagna. And this is us making it. Well, them making it. I'm taking the picture. So we go and we get there, and we have it all ready, and people start coming, and more people come. And more people come. Ended up over 100 people show up. And we're like, okay, well, we only made enough for what we thought would be 60. So we're going to feed the kids, and with, as many kids as we can, and then if we have any left over, we'll just get some to the adults. And so I go, and I'm starting to hand out the food. The next slide is actually showing the kids, and you can see the portion size. I mean, we weren't skimping. They got decent stuff. And I'm going, and I'm passing them out, and I come back into the kitchen, and I look, and the tray's empty. And I'm like, okay, that's the end of the second tray. Because I know how much I've given out. And they're like, oh, no, that was just the first tray. And I'm like, no. And then I look over there, they're starting to get into the second tray. I'm like, there is absolutely no way that all of those pieces I handed out would fit back into that tray. By the end of the night, not only did we have enough to feed everybody, but even us as team members too. There is absolutely no way, because I know what I gave out. I know exactly what I gave out. It would not fit back in there. Excuse me. The only way that happened is if God supplied. He multiplied it somewhere. It's like, I don't know how it happened. I have absolutely no idea how it happened, except for that God was the one that stretched all of that to feed over 100 people. And to this day, I was surprised I actually had a photo of this. I was like, when I found this the other day, I'm like, oh, I got to use this one. The thing is that there's so many things that being a missionary you get to be a part of. things that you've heard about in the past, things that you're going to be telling stories about what you saw in Ecuador for years. Because that is going to be your starting point of where God is taking you. Just for me in the Philippines, that was my starting point. And then all of these things, because then you start opening up your door, and then you start seeing on how impacting somebody else's life just by being there, just by going, is amazing. One of the most impactful trips I ever took was to Haiti. Is that where I'm at? Oh no, I'm skipped down too far. We were going to, well, I'll talk about Haiti because we'll just jump all the way down there. So we're going to go down a couple of slides to, yeah, I'm getting out of order. It's a kind of a shack-looking thing, that one. So I was asked to go be a part of a Foursquare disaster relief trip to Haiti. And what we were going to do is we were going to go, this was after the hurricane, and this was back in 2000, I went in the beginning of 2017. This is a chicken coop. This was where a pastor and his whole family were living after the hurricane. It's not very big. It's only probably about 10 feet wide by maybe 6 feet deep. It wasn't made for people. He actually slept outside because there wasn't enough room. And so we were supposed to go there and help build a part of a house. We weren't able to, just because of time, we weren't able to do the whole thing, but we're out there and one evening we're going, and we had been working for days on this, and I had seen about 5 or 6 young boys running around all day long. And then finally it's at the end of the day, I'm sitting there kind of dirty, and actually if you go to the next slide, I have my hat and my work clothes and a t-shirt. This lady, for some reason, she liked me, so she came and sat down next to me. I didn't know what she was saying, but it was important. But it was one of those things of like just being there, just being a part of this thing, and I have no idea what it was that she saw in us, but she came and she sat there for every time I would sit down, she'd come and sit next to me for a couple of days. But you see, I have just a work hat, some work jeans, and just a messed up t-shirt. I'm sitting there, and one of the young boys, he comes up to me and he tugs on my sleeve and he goes, "Gimme." And I'm like, "Give you? No, I still need this." I was wearing my hat, so he tapped my hat and he goes, "Give me." I'm like, "Well, I'm still using this. I appreciate that." You know, and we knew we weren't going to give any money. That wasn't going to be in, because that was the next thing he asked. He goes, "Give me money." I'm like, "No, that's not what we're here for." And he's like, "Oh," and he walks away. I'm like, thinking that the conversation's done. And then 2 minutes later, he comes over, tugs on my shirt again, and this is what he does. He's like, "Oh." And I was shocked. I knew that this boy wasn't hung because I seen him running around all day. The thing was that he had learned what it took to get something out of the Americans. He knew what buttons to try to push. And my heart broke. Because this boy, 10 years old, is already in that mindset. Now, mind you, we had security guards that were there to keep us safe. And these guys, they were paid to be there at night. But they were asking us how to teach them on how to use a hammer. Use a hammer. The thing is that they had been given so much stuff as they were growing up that nobody taught them a skill. If they had a skill, they could have had a business going around and replacing roofs. But everybody was giving things out. People were giving things to them and not showing them how to do stuff. And my heart broke. It's like, how do I help those older guys without damaging the younger guys? And that's one thing that in doing missions, we always have to be careful of. Actually, the next slide, well, go one back, that one. That's actually the house that we built for them. I'm telling you, that thing was not going anywhere. Because those columns were 6 inches by 6 inches, and they were solid concrete. And then, there were 8 of them just for that house. But the point I wanted to get across was this, is that we need to be aware of how we give assistance to make sure it doesn't cause long-term hurt. And how do we make a difference? Oh, thank you. How do we make a difference? It's one person at a time. You don't have to go and solve all of a country's problems. Haiti, I had a person ask me, you're going to Haiti with all those problems. How in the world are you going to make a difference? One person at a time. You connect with one person. You pour into one person. And then the next time you go back, you pour into somebody else. And they pour into somebody else. And then they pour into somebody else. It's a snowball effect. But if you never go to the first time, the first seed never gets planted. And the thing is it doesn't take anything. It doesn't take a major skill to go and be a friend to somebody. But we have to make sure that we do things in such a way that it's not going to cause more harm when we leave, and they're going to spend 6 months undoing what we were there just 1 week and the problems that we caused. We have to look at everything in general. I'm going to jump back to the rock house, if that makes sense. To go back that one. Okay, so I was down in southern Mexico, and we were visiting a church. The nearest Foursquare church was a 6-hour bus ride away. And the thing was that they were all by themselves. And so we were going there just to let them know that, the rest of Foursquare in Mexico knew that they were there. And it's a great pastor and his wife. I mean, they have 30 plus people showing up on a Wednesday night, men included. So that's a healthy church. And so while we were there as a group, what they did is they had each one of the families in the church, they would cook for us one meal. And so we're going over, and we went to, it's not this house, but it's one very similar to it. And they were doing a late breakfast, early lunch for us. And so we go and they're cooking, and we go and sit down, and I'm there with Pastor Carlos, who was the missions director at the time, the guy who I was working for. And they come up to him and they ask him a question. And he goes, oh, yeah, see. I'm like, I don't like the sound of that. And so then they hand me this plate. And on it was this pepper. And I'm like, what'd they ask you? They asked if you liked to eat hot stuff. I'm like, okay, and you told them? He goes, yeah, you eat hot stuff. I'm like, okay, which I do. I like spicy, but not Pastor Carlos spicy. They hand him his plate. There's not a pepper. I'm like, why aren't you getting a pepper? He goes, oh, those are too hot for me. I'm like, he eats things that burn my tongue off. And this was too hot for him? But the thing is that I'm sitting there, and one of the things about missionaries, they'll say, where he leads, I will follow. What they feed me, I will swallow. And so I feel obligated to take a couple of bites, and I'm going to, okay, I take the first one, not so bad, and then I feel it building. I'm like, okay, I'll take one more. Oh, I could barely get the third one, and that was it. The whole rest of the day, the whole rest of that meal, everything was super spicy. I'm like, can we let the beans cool down? They're like, the beans are cold. I'm like, not to my tongue, they're not. It didn't change just the spiciness aspect of it, but also the temperature aspect. I thought everything, it's like, man, this is some really hot iced tea. But the thing is that when I was talking about the food situation, when they know that you like and that you appreciate what they do, you may not be able to taste things for 3 days, but the impact that it made in that family is that I wanted to be a part of them. I wanted to know them. You were talking about learning Spanish. When I first was learning Spanish, I'm still learning Spanish. It was a mess. But I'm like, I'm just going to keep trying. Because the fact that I'm trying goes a long way to let them know that I care about their culture and who they are. I'm trying to learn how they speak. And even if it was really horrible, which it often was, they appreciated the fact that I was trying. Because oftentimes things are a little uncomfortable when you go on these trips. We'll jump down to the bus slide, if that makes sense. That one. Because oftentimes I don't fit. I feel sorry for this guy because he's like, why is this lady taking a picture of me? Not realizing I'm behind him. But yeah, there's a lot of times when I just don't fit. But the thing is that what that does is it offers me an opportunity to bring attention to what we're doing. Like I talked about in the Philippines, that the fact that there were American missionaries there, that was a good enough reason for them to come. They're going to walk 2 hours just to see that. Just the fact that we're around something, or we're standing in front of a church, they're like, what's going on in there? He doesn't normally, that tall white guy with long gray hair does not usually stand there. What's going on? I realized that I had turned a corner and missions was part of my calling. The first time I went down to Guatemala, I was part of a scouting team, and most of them everybody else except me had gone ahead. I can't remember why, but I had to stay a day behind and follow them. And so I'm on the plane. I'm flying from Las Vegas to Miami down to Guatemala. And I'm on the flight between Las Vegas and Miami, and halfway through the flight, I realize I don't have any contact information of the people who are picking me up, because the rest of my team is supposed to be at a service. I get to Miami, I'm sending messages to my home church. I'm like, can you at least give me a phone number or something? But I didn't get any response by the time I left Miami down for Honduras. So I'm flying down to Guatemala. I'm flying down to Guatemala, and this is what I know about the person that's supposed to pick me up. A Hispanic male. I'm a logistics guy. I like to have all the details. But when I was at peace with that, I knew that this was part of my calling. Luckily, I go, and I didn't know anything different. I walk out the doors after going through immigration. I walk out, and there's my team and the missionary where the service had gotten canceled. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not getting kidnapped today. So to be able to see a friendly face was really good. Talking about what it takes to be a missionary. One of our first trips, even before we moved down there, we went to an orphanage. There was a special needs orphanage. And we had a team, and we walked in and walked in the door, and immediately this young boy who was autistic comes running up to me. Come to find out, he picks the tallest guy in the room and wants to be held the whole time. And so and I'm like, okay, you're going to be on my shoulder for a couple minutes. No, he was on my shoulder for like 45. But he was happy. And another one of our team members found a bottle of bubbles, and we started blowing some bubbles, and this other boy comes up and is just ecstatic. So for 45 minutes, we blew bubbles. January had twisted her ankle, and she couldn't do anything, so she was sitting on the couch, and this one girl just wanted to be held. And so for the whole time we were there, I was being a tree, blowing bubbles. But for that day was different for those kids. They had a great day. Did it cost me anything? No. Was it hard to do? Well, I leaned to one side for a while, but other than that, no. When I was in the Philippines, we were again in one of those lines getting ready for ice cream, and the kids were getting restless. And so I'm like, oh, I got to do something. So I go up to one of them, I'm like, give me a high five. And he's like, what? I'm like, high five. I'm like, grab his hand and smack. high five. The next one, high five. Like, huh? I'm like, okay, let me show you. I ended up teaching this line of boys how to do a high five. So I go down through, boom, and then we're going through, and there was one boy that just was distracted. He was looking at something else, and so I come up to him like, and he's like, huh? And he goes to give me with the wrong hand. I'm like, no, this one. And everybody's laughing. Something as simple as teaching them how to do a high five all of a sudden changed their day. Because now instead of them just being standing there, okay, not doing anything, now they're giggling, they're laughing, they're joking with each other, and we're having a good time. Did I need to know Cebuano to do that? No. I just had to get outside my comfort zone and do something fun. We'll go down to the next slide. I want to see what that one is. So this is another orphanage down in Mexico. It's called Door of Faith. And this is the one for the kids. This is the queue. I messed things up in the order, so I'm just having the queue. This is Door of Faith. So this orphanage gets 250 teams a year. Did they need us to come by there? No, but we had something canceled, and they said, if you ever have a team that's canceling something, go ahead and bring them by. I'm like, we don't have a program for them at all. So they're like, well, just come on down. So what we did is we did this. We thought that the girls were going to want to have their fingernails painted, but actually they wanted to paint somebody else's fingernails in this photo here. And so this is some of the guys from the team. They're like, okay, whatever. We just went and hung out. We didn't have a program. We didn't do a big presentation. We just went and hung out. And if you go to the next slide, we had this craft that we had figured out, and it was supposed to be you nail and you do the yarn and a cross. You can see it at the bottom there. And some of the boys, they just wanted to be doing the nail. They didn't care about the yarn. They just wanted to be hitting stuff. This is another example of where it doesn't take a set skills. It doesn't take going to a theology institute to be a missionary. You just have to be willing to go and hold a piece of wood while a little boy taps a nail into it. Or be willing to have some of these girls paint your fingernails. Or to blow bubbles. When it comes down to it, this is the next slide. It's a willing heart. A willing heart is all it takes to be a missionary. So if you can blow bubbles, if you can scoop ice cream, if you can teach kids how to high five, guess what? You can be a missionary. And we have a way to illustrate this a little bit better with your team.
Great. So kids, stand up for a minute, because you've been so great about sitting there, and I can tell you're filling out your sheets. Okay, so I have some kind of strange questions to ask you. Okay, have you graduated from college yet, or seminary? No. Okay. Have you completed workshops on evangelism? They're looking at me like, what are you talking about? All right, do you have the gift of evangelism? Not sure yet. Okay. Have you memorized the scriptures that are part of the Roman road? Not so much, huh? Okay. Well, I'm looking for missionaries, so, Oh, wow. Okay, maybe I'm asking the wrong questions. What do you think?
Maybe some stuff in this basket could help.
Okay, yeah, I think so. All right, so Michael, come over here for a minute. All right, so do you think that you could high five? Yeah. Okay, and then do you think you could say, did you know?
Jesus loves you.
Okay, so we're going to practice with a neighbor. Okay, turn to your neighbor, everyone. Turn to your neighbor, find a neighbor. Okay, high five, and did you know Jesus loves you, right? Okay. Good job. All right, so if you had bubbles, do you think you could share it with somebody you didn't know and you guys could play together? That'd be fun, wouldn't it? It would be a yes. Okay. God would want her to. Awesome! I love that. You know, some of you are going to be too young to go on the trip in December. But think about it. You could be a missionary at your school, in your neighborhood. You could be on mission and tell people about Jesus, right? Okay. Or could you pass out water to somebody that was thirsty? You could do that. Yes, I love that. All right. And Pastor Scott was talking about ice cream. Okay, so we have a visual here because you've been so patient. And I know you're getting hungry. So instead of ice cream, if you would like a squirt of chocolate whipped cream, open your mouth up like a little bird, all right? And Genevieve's going to come. So open your mouth wide. And, and she's going to squirt that in. I love it. Okay, stand up. So she, oh, now we have some participation here. I love that. Okay, oh, yeah. Oh, I said, please aim for their mouth. Oh, good job. Oh, who else? Did you want a little squirt? What do you think? No, okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Well, the last thing, so you heard Miss Sarah talk about the play, right? Do you think there's going to be some flyers out there when we leave? You could take one of these and invite a friend and say, come with me. I'm going to be in a play. It's going to be so much fun. You're going to ask. All right. She already knows who she's bringing it to. I love it. These kids are ready. They are missional. All right. So now I need some help. Okay, and everybody's going to take a sticker and put it on your heart. Your heart's on the left side, right? Okay, so come up and help me. Okay, and you're going to go down each row, and you're going to let everyone take a heart. Okay, you guys are awesome. Look at you. Want to go help pass these out? What a good job. Go pass those out. Okay, everybody needs a sticker. And then you're going to put it on your heart. Okay, put your sticker on. Here, I'll let you take that. I need a heart. All right. Okay, we're going to give everybody a minute to get their heart on. Okay, you know when you pledge allegiance, you put it on your heart. There it is. Okay. I'm gonna wait till everybody has their heart. Oh, look at them. They're doing awesome. These kids are equipped, right? I love it. All right, we're making our way. We want everybody to have their heart. This is great. All right, great job. Okay, so now you repeat after me. I'm willing to love people because that's what it takes to be a missionary or missional, is to love people and let them know about Jesus.
So the last point I have, which is the last slide, was something that I don't think you saw my slides, did you? No. Because Acts 1:8. You will receive the power, so you don't have to do it on your own. God is going to give you the power to do what he's called you to do. And you will be my witnesses. And it was stated earlier, talk about testimony. Well, testimony is really super simple. In the court of law, when somebody's a witness, and they give testimony, what are they doing? They're talking about what they've seen, heard, or experienced personally. The thing is that each one of us have a personal story that we can't say it wrong because it's our story. And the formula is really simple. I was, then God, now I am. If you can tell whatever part of your story fits that, then that's what God's asking you to be a witness to. You're just telling people how your life has been changed. That's all God's asked you to do. He will do the rest. I was, then God, now I am. It's very simple. And you can't do it wrong because it's your story. If you're telling somebody else's story, then they're like, oh, well, you didn't get the facts right, but it's your story. Let me challenge you, because if you look here, the next part of that is, it's very strategic. In Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth. Jerusalem is your home, where you're comfortable. Judea it's still your home, but it's a greater area, be like Arizona or something like that. They put Samaria in there, in a place where you're hated. And if it doesn't cover all that, then it's the ends of the earth. Not everyone is called to go to every place, but everyone is called to go someplace. Be it down the street, be a light at your job site because it's a very dark place. It could be at the outreaches. And it just might be to another country. And be careful, it may be for a long time. I thought I was only a short-term guy, and God said different, so. My thing is that each one of us have a story that somebody needs to hear. Every single one of us. If we're still on this earth, we still have a story to tell. And if you're here, you have a story to tell that somebody needs to hear. Don't be afraid to tell it, because you can't do it wrong.